I like to be called Udo, for that is my name. But it has not always been my name. Indeed, I have been called many names. And to each of those names I have responded. And to each of those names I have been responsible. So, in truth, I am many things. But what is a name? What is the importance in a thing named? And if I have not named myself, by what authority am I bound? Sometimes when I am napping on the floor, or somewhere away from the hustle and bustle of my owners, who move about the house constantly, cleaning, picking things off the floor, moving objects from one place to another, I like to think about things that can never be known before falling asleep. Sometimes I wonder if I am still the same cat that was once named Nibbles, or if I have changed, when this change occurred, and how I will change in the future, even though I will still prefer to be called Udo. Yes, this form of sedate musing is a luxury, I know, for I never hear Dean worry about losing his identity because of such a trivial thing as a name. Of course, I'm convinced that he is worried about other things beyond the issue of his own identity. But for the most part, I am not aware of this, nor am I particularly interested. I am fed well and taken well care of, and often I am addressed by name with gentle words and stroked. Beyond this, in my freedom to do what I like, I see no reason to wish for more. My only responsibility is to appreciate the fondness which is shown to me. Yes, I am living a good life for now. I had an owner once who treated me poorly and called me terrible names. This owner was also a thinker, but his thoughts were dark and his thoughts were black. At times he could be affectionate and calm. That is when I could walk around in peace without worry. But as the evening would approach, which is when he mostly liked to work, his demeanor would begin to change, and he would become quick to anger, and he would become erratic and mean. And that is when I knew it was time to hide, lest I become victim to his abusive behavior. The transformation always began with the strange lighting of a rare herb, frightening and pungent. I came to know this odor, and it frightened me more and more as I learned to associate his terrible transformation with this ritual. And that is what it was, a ritual, as if before his work could begin, he would need to alter his personality to accommodate the black thoughts that he would draw from his own mind. I remember that the house in which we lived was large, dark, and cold, and I have come to associate such coldness with the iciness in his heart. Never did I leave that terrible house. I call it a house because it was not a home. Not like the home I live in now. Fortunately, there were many places for me to hide, and I was able to avoid him when he was under the spell of his terrible visions. Typically, he would drink coffee before the beginning of his night's work, so the aroma of coffee would begin to symbolize the beginning of this transformation. Next, I would smell the aroma of the powerful drug that would begin the transformation. Then, he would go to his writing desk and sit down, and I would wait for the nightmare to begin. A large grandfather clock would tick away the seconds, and the sound of the workings would fill me with terror like the faint chewing of rats in the walls. Then, with pen in hand, he would start to write. Hour after hour, he would work without stopping, as if an internal mechanism drove his purpose, of which he was unable to stop. And in this way, his nightmares were turned into words. Yes, they were nightmares. This I know, because he would utter dreadful and hideous curses and succumb to frequent ravings. His eyes would stare weakly into the darkness all around him, but for the pale light from a candle beside him. And in the wavering candlelight, he seemed to change with each new emotion which initiated his mad ravings. He would grow weaker and more feeble as he continued, as if the very essence of his being were being drawn out of his body, and he would grow pale. I did not like to see this, for it scared me immeasurably, but I was mesmerized by his transformation. Long into the wee hours this would continue, and out of sheer exhaustion the spell would lose its inexorable grip on his mind. Then he would stagger to his feet and stumble away from his writing desk to his room, where he would collapse on the bed without undressing. Once, so utterly exhausted was he that he forgot to blow out the candle. And it was on this fateful night that I crept up onto his desk to read what he had written. I wish I had never read those dreadful words, and that they could be extricated from my mind, for I shall never forget their substance. The very words looked vile, and as I read them, I felt my skin crawl. In vain we cry our worthless tears, unobserved and unknown, neither here nor into eternity. For there is no purpose but that we should give back to the stagnant and wretched earth the dust and the base material from which we have borrowed for the brief moment from which we have gasped our final breath of insignificant remorse, and that our moldering body should at last return to the earth what it has taken for so brief a heartbeat. I shudder now, even to recall those hopeless and baleful words, and I could almost feel the stirrings of a sickness in such sinister musings. Such thoughts of blackness can destroy the spirit, and I feared for the very spirit that my guardian should have called into this world through his terrible thoughts. But now I knew the truth about him, and now I understood the poison within his heart. From this moment forward, he began to hate me. For I am convinced that he was aware that I had learned his secret, and that I knew of the poison inside of him, which he was able to extricate only by putting into words. He would curse me with terrible curses. He would throw shoes at me in frenzied anger to end my existence. For I am convinced that he was afraid of being judged by me. I was small. I was an insignificant cat, yes. But he knew that I had judged him. I knew that there was no way for me to escape this hateful house, and that my days on this earth were numbered. So I accepted my fate, and that I should die at the hands of a murderer. Still, he fed me and gave me water to drink. So I came to realize that it was his nightly devotion to his work and to his dependence on his drugs that would turn him into a fiend, and further, that he was able to withstand the ghastly urges for brief periods during the daylight hours. This realization gave me hope of survival, though I slept with one eye open. One night, as he sat at his writing table, hunched over his work, I crept into the room to watch him. He was mumbling incoherently, and I wondered if he had taken an overdose of drugs and could no longer hold his thoughts together. His exhortations were loud and violent. Then he saw me, and an icy chill went up my back. "You," he shouted at me. But he did not make a move toward me. "You have brought ruin upon my house. What malevolent purpose has brought you to me? Speak," he shouted. I wanted to help him. I really did want to try to help him, because I knew that I wanted to survive, and I needed him. And so I said, "You have brought this curse upon your own house, and that it should fall." His eyes were glassy, and I thought that he was close to death. But he spoke again. "Devil, cursed devil, monster, leave me in peace. You have been stricken by your own thoughts," I said. "These thoughts will destroy you. Put an end to your sinister work and live." He flew into a rage from which he could never recover. He threw his inkwell at me and missed. Then, in a fury, he chased me through the cursed house until he finally found me, and I was cornered. Inch by horrible inch, he came closer and closer to me. There was no escape. His face was cold and wet with icy perspiration, and his breathing was low and labored like an animal, coming only in gasps. "I'll tear you apart, limb by limb," he gasped. And as his hands reached for me, but I was not to die by his hand, for that is when he collapsed and died at my very feet. For many days and weeks I roamed the house alone while his body putrefied on the floor. I had nothing to eat and nothing to drink, and was weakened to the point of death. That is when the authorities found him, and that is when I was rescued, and I died before they could help me. But I was happy to die outside of that dreadful house. Udo.